Is going on, guys? Welcome back into the film room. I'm your host, Erik Turner, joined again by Anthony Prohaska from Disguise Coverage after the big loss by the Bills against the Chiefs in the AFC Championship game. Unfortunately, we had to go back and rewatch the film, Anthony, and we're going to break down the offense, break down the defense, show a little film on how the Chiefs attacked the Bills defense. And let's just start at the top, man. How you feeling on this Tuesday after the first time we've had to break down some film and really do a review on a loss?
Yeah, I feel not great. Didn't want to go back and watch the film, and then rewatching it, it just drove home everything that I initially experienced on the first watch live on Sunday, which was just we talked about it off air. The Bills were basically like assaulted in that game. We had no answer, poor execution, poor game planning. It looked like as well. We just got they beat us with physicality. They beat us with speed. They beat us with scheme and technique. We just looked outmatched and overpowered in a variety of facets and in a variety of ways. And that's really what stuck with me after the game. And then in rewatching the film and going through some of the things we're going to go through tonight in the film room, it's really just going to drive home that point of how well the Chiefs executed and what they did to really get the Bills off their game and really knock us out time and time again.
Yeah, as a lot of people are saying, it was a painful game. It was a painful rewatch for us. But we're going to get into a lot of the details and the X's and O's of the game. But let's start with a little roll call. Make sure to put where you're tuning in from, what city, what state, what country. We always like to see that in the chat room and in the comment section as you watch, if you're watching in a replay later on tonight or tomorrow. But we appreciate everyone tuning in. And also, I want to hear everyone's high points from the season, because I know a lot of you are feeling a little down about the loss, but this was a pretty remarkable season, and there are a lot of good moments and a lot of good experiences for this team, right, Anthony?
Oh, for sure. We saw so many reactionary comments in the Slack channel, in social media, and you hear it on the radio, and just people you talk to, just the amount of kind of like the world is on fire for things. And I recognize the loss, and I recognize it's a really bad way and an ugly way to go out. But this season had so many positives, and the future is legitimately bright. And we have another off season, hopefully a full off season that won't be as impacted as much by COVID, fingers crossed, to really see the development of this team and to see Josh Allen take another potential step.
Yes.
Look at that, Allen proving everyone wrong. That was a massive one. We came into this year thinking, hopefully Josh Allen can make a jump from year 2 to year 3, like he made from year 1 to year 2. And instead he made like 80 jumps exactly there from Michael Lucas. Josh Allen cemented himself as the franchise QB. I think that was even in my brain coming into this year. I wanted to see what Josh could do in establishing himself as being the guy. Was he the guy that we needed him to be? Could he adjust? Could he evolve a bit and raise his game? And he did that and more, and rose himself to MVP levels in this year. And that was a massive high point for a lot of people.
Yeah, I have to agree on that. It was Josh Allen, his development. We do film rooms every week on him. We track his development, his progress, and in every little way we can, whether it's his physical traits and his mechanics, but also from the shoulders up. And I thought as much as the mechanics and lower body and rotational passer talk was the focus or attention this season, and how it affected his placement and accuracy, I mean, some of the stuff that we saw at the line of scrimmage from the shoulders up was phenomenal. I think that is really what is reflected in the completion percentage. It's not necessarily his mechanics and how accurate he is when you're talking completion percentage. It's how quickly he's able to diagnose coverages pre to post snap, and how defenses are trying to fool him, and how he's able to disperse the ball and distribute the ball to all those weapons that Brandon Beane gave him last offseason to, as Michael said, cement himself to prove that he is a franchise guy. And I think he no doubt proved that. And he said that at his presser the other day that, he feels like he proved that he is the guy. So that for me absolutely was the best part of the season. And we saw that reflected in everything about the offense. I mean, when it comes to points, when it comes to those critical situations, like he upped his game in so many different ways this season, and that for me was the best part of it. Unfortunately, it didn't really play out that way in the final game of the Bills season against the Chiefs. So let's jump into some of what happened, some of the storylines for the Bills offense versus the Chiefs. I want you to lead off with what we kind of talked about. Was it was almost like, the Chiefs obviously had been there, and they let the Bills know that they had been there and that the Bills were in for a fight.
Yeah, they set the tone right away. There was a lot of chippiness and kind of physicality, both in terms of the actual scheme ability and just general kind of dirty plays. We saw Chris Jones throw a nice right hook to Feliciano early in the game. We saw guys getting pushed over. You had the play with Chris Jones rolling up, Feliciano getting in Dawkins' face after the play. Just a lot of chippiness and that physicality. And it wasn't just after the snap and in like the verbiage and in like those little like dirty moments. It was also just in the general way that the Chiefs played. They got in the Bills receivers' faces. They were all over them in coverage. They pattern matched well. They had their hands on everybody. They were constantly making contact, looking for ways to disrupt the Bills' offense and not let Allen or the receivers have time and just the ability to separate and create space for themselves. They really upped that physical ante on defense. Every single thing the Bills did, you and I were talking about this off air, every single thing the Bills did was like pulling teeth. It was a struggle, whether it was a catch for 6 yards or a catch for 15. It wasn't immediate. It took an extra effort to separate. It took a little extra wiggle or read from Allen.
Yeah.
Everything was a struggle. The Chiefs made everything a grind in that game.
Yeah, like you said, it was like pulling teeth for everything. The Chiefs wanted to straight up bully the Bills offense. You mentioned a couple of the moments in that first half. I mean, the third play of the game, Chris Jones, on a power run, tried rolling up Feliciano. Feliciano and Williams worked a double team, a deuce block, and really, set the line of scrimmage in the Bills' favor. And then at the end of the play, you saw Jones kind of try to push over Feliciano when there was guys at his legs. A couple plays later, Dawkins pancaked Frank Clark, the D end. And then as they were getting up off the ground, Clark kind of gave him a little knee to the helmet. Of course, the hook by Chris Jones, as you said, on Feliciano in the second quarter. The suplex by the cornerback Breland on Diggs in the second quarter. And so it was no surprise that late in the game that the frustration, the emotions boiled over when the Bills, began to realize, hey, this game's probably over. And you heard Dawkins talk about that in his pressers the last couple of days. It was just frustration. He didn't really say that they were playing dirty. I think, he just meant that, it's part of the game, and that, in a high stakes game like this, that type of stuff is kind of elevated. And as someone said in the chat room, if the refs do not, stop that stuff or nip that in the bud early, that stuff's going to go on the entire game. Yep. And so there's that. And then there's, as you said, the physicality of the defensive backs on the Bills wide receivers. And as people are saying in the chat room, that, some of the receivers are banged up. Brown, Beasley. I mean, you can see Beasley on a couple of these out routes. He's not exploding out of these cuts. Yeah. And you can tell he's still, he's still injured just a little bit. I know he said he was feeling better this game, but that physicality on top of them, and Gabriel Davis being banged up, I think really hampered what the Bills want to do. And, I had a question from one of our Slack members about, well, how can they do that, in man coverage versus the Bills wide receivers when the Bills tore up man coverage during the season? And my response to that was, yes, I think they played teams that were better in man coverage, such as the Dolphins, who, have Byron Jones, Xavier Howard, and guys that can play pure man coverage, but it was not this type of man coverage. It was not that physical press in the contact box type of physicality that those cover guys of the Dolphins like to play. Those guys are more sticky. They're sticking to the receivers down the field, and they can match them with their footwork and athleticism. These guys were more, let's punch them at the line. Let's near hand jam them. Don't give them those easy releases, because whether it's man or zone, that slows down the Bills, quick passing game. Those 5, 6, 7 yard option routes to Beasley. And Snead did a great job of him in the slot, against him in the slot, and really, stuck to him. And as we talked about, that hampered not just the quick passing game, but really the extension of the Bills running game.
Yeah, they were able to limit what the Bills could do vertically and what they could do in the passing game. And then by extension, it translated to the running game, as did the defensive line play from the Chiefs. Chris Jones was a monster in that game, especially against Feliciano in multiple forms and facets, just getting Feliciano off leverage, being able to get him to wrong foot him and be able to cut inside and come free. And that was a big part too in that passing game. There were times when the Bills were able to beat some of the coverage and get some guys open, but Chris Jones would get into the backfield so fast that Allen had to scramble away from the side that had an open receiver, or scramble and wasn't able to see the play develop and get to things in time. Everything was just hard. And again, translating to the running game, we saw some good things here and there. Williams had a couple nice blocks and a couple nice plays, and Feliciano, his strength is the run game. He did decent enough for us, but it not having that passing element as the threat that it's been all year for the Bills, which is the identity of this Bills offense, which is a spread offense, passing offense. They're going to attack you with that. Not having that made a running game that was already at best somewhat average. It made it even more below average and just made it even more of a grind to try and get anything out of it.
Yeah, and let's start with the passing game real quick. You mentioned Jones. You saw he had several pressures against the Bills the other night, and it's Allen dropped back 58 times, as you can see on the screen. He was under pressure 24 times, and when he was under pressure, he was not able to obviously move the ball down the field. Look at the yards per attempt, 4.1, and 4 sacks. So while they did bring pressure, 22 out of the 58 dropbacks, they were still able to get and affect Josh Allen from the pocket with 4 rushers, and a lot of that was Chris Jones, as you mentioned. But I thought that when it came to pass blocking, Feliciano was probably the weak link in this area. I thought he was quite bad. I mean, there were so many double-handed swats and swipes from defensive tackles in this game, and not just Chris Jones, Wharton as well. He had a pretty good game against the Bills as well. And I thought, when Feliciano got that first move, that first initial plan from that defensive lineman, he would whiff, and then there was just no way that he could recover. He'd open his door. He would not stay square to the line of scrimmage, and that allowed that pass rusher to blow right by him and affect Josh Allen. And that happened numerous times in this game. But who else stood out to you, or maybe even obviously it's not easy blocking for Josh Allen. He holds on the ball for a very long time, but I thought for the most part this season, once they settled in on 5 starters along the offensive line, they did a good job. But this game, I mean, when you have the Frank Clarks, the Chris Jones, and those kind of guys that command, double teams, there's only so much you can do with guys that are probably just average or above average across the offensive line.
Yeah, when you get matched up with a superstar like that and a stud like Chris Jones and like Frank Clark that's when it really starts to stress your individual makeup. And I think if you look at the Bills' offensive line, I think they had a good year. They, even just looking at their Pro Football Focus grade, they were but just in pass blocking, they were the 6th best graded pass blocking offensive line in the NFL on the year. And Mitch Morse, I thought, had a really good year. I think his contribution to this team is so underrated. There's still people on Twitter saying that we should cut Mitch Morse in the offseason and things like that. But I thought he had a really good year. Oh, thank you, John. Tremendous. Thank you so much. Darrell Williams had a really good year, to the point that we're now talking about, like, okay, what kind of long-term contract do we potentially offer Darrell Williams? And then Dawkins had a good year like we thought he would. Bodker really stepped up and solidified the left guard spot. And Feliciano was strong in the run, not as good with his pass pro. And when you add up everybody, I think this was an offensive line that the sum was greater than the individual parts. They play well as a unit, they communicate well, and they're able to execute. But if they get matched up in certain situations where they come up against a stud or a star, they're going to struggle a little bit. Because again, the offensive line, the sum is greater than the individual parts. The Bills don't have a stud on that offensive line. Dawkins is their best offensive lineman, or Morse, but neither of them are all pro world beaters up front that you're just like, right, okay, set it and forget it. They'll take care of it. And those are the 2 best. So when you move on from there and you go down to Bodker or Feliciano or Williams, you have a chance to get beat here and there. And while they did a good job for the majority of the season, this game we really saw what pressure from a stud defensive lineman or just a well-coached and well-schemed unit with different looks and different attack modes and different coverages and disguising pressure fronts, that everything that Spags really did for the Chiefs in this game, just coordinating a really well-coached game on defense, we saw how much they can struggle with things like that.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at his average to attempt here, courtesy of Pro Football Focus, 2.95 seconds. That's a long time to hold on to the ball. That's a lot of stress on your offensive line. And if you guys look at that last screen I had showed you as far as what the Bills allowed as far as pressures, one of the top guys on that list was Josh Allen. And so they credit some of that pressure being him being under pressure to Josh Allen holding the ball long. 2.95 seconds is a long time. That's an eternity to hold on to the ball and force your offensive linemen. A lot of times five offensive linemen when they send 5 guys out in the routes. So that's a lot of stress, and we saw that kind of break down. But the other reason why he held on to the ball that long was because, like you said, Spags did such a great job of disguising the coverages, rotating late. A lot of those check with me calls were countered post that 15-second play clock. So you'd see Josh right around that 15-second play clock, go ahead and get the call from Dable and make an alert call or a reload call. And then you'd see Hitchens, the linebacker for the Chiefs, or Tyrann Mathieu change the coverage, give some hand signals, and they counter. It was almost like Peyton Manning and Ray Lewis back in the day, where the chess match, man, it was just going back and forth. And if you guys are interested in that, we are going to break that down tomorrow. We're going to really just talk about the offense today. The film portion will be in the Josh Allen film room tomorrow with Nate Geary and I. But I thought that was fun to see. Again, that's something I talk about all the time this year, with being able to hear the broadcast copy as clear as you can. I thought that was very Peyton Manning, Ray Lewis-like.
Yeah, that was, as just a pure football fan, that was really cool to see how the Chiefs answered that chess match, because we've seen a lot of times, and I remember seeing it even before, Josh Allen and that, like you mentioned with Peyton Manning, I would see Manning come to the line and check, or I would see Phillip Rivers come to the line and check. And in my head, from the time I was little, I'd always be like, how come the defense doesn't check to answer what they're doing? And I was like, oh, okay, whatever. And this game was the epitome of the defense playing chess to answer the chess moves on the offense. We saw it right on the first drive. Allen comes up, he hits the alert, taps his head, calling out signals, and then Hitchens is on that other side, throwing out checks, coverages. They're adjusting, they're rotating, and they really confused Allen and I think stymied the offense, as we can see by the results. And you hit on a good point with Allen and the time that he had to throw. The pressure that the Chiefs front was able to generate, granted, they had times where they just came scot-free. A lot of it was due to that coverage on the back end. They were disrupting the timing. The Bills receivers didn't have anywhere to go. They limited the space. They limited the separation. Granted, there were some injury concerns for the Bills' weapons, but they blanketed the Bills' weaponry to the point that Allen's first read wasn't there. His second read wasn't there. And by the time he would try to go to that third, he either had somebody in his face, or he was getting sacked or pressured, or he had to scramble. Yeah. And it was a really good mix of pressure that was due to quality up front, but a lot of pressure that was generated due to the quality coverage on the back end.
Yeah, I mean, I said it on Twitter the other day, right after the game. The Chiefs' coverage was greater than the Chiefs' pass rush. Again, we talked about how Clark and Jones affected the Bills' offensive line and how they beat the offensive line, but what it really came down to was the coverage on the back end, the physicality, the contact in that first few yards of a route. And then, as you said, as they got to Allen and had him hold on to the ball, the defenders were able to, plaster down and cover up everyone, especially late on the play, when a lot of times you see Josh Allen get outside the pocket and throw some deep comebacks to John Brown, Gabriel Davis. None of that was there in this game. And then, just Josh Allen from a mechanics standpoint wasn't his best game. There were several overthrows from him. Again, these are we're going to go into greater detail in the film room tomorrow, but he was also off too. All of this affected him. I don't think early on in the game, I don't think he was quite the hero ball, Josh. I don't think he was to that point, because like that first throw to Beasley for 17 yards, I was like, oh, that's a good sign. That's a really good sign in a tight window, perfect throw on Beasley's hands, 17-yard gain. Like when he threw that first, because usually first couple of throws with Josh Allen, you really have to, hone in on to get an idea, what type of game, Josh is going to have.
Yeah, he fluctuated a bit more in this game, and he had some throws. The one that comes immediately to mind was a 3rd down and 3 when Diggs won on the outside. He hit a quick little like 4-yard hitch, and he stopped right at the marker on the high side of the screen if you were looking at it, and Allen just airmailed it over his head. Diggs had the separation. He won in the route. All Allen had to do was just hit him, and he was a little late on the throw, and 2, he just airmailed it. Diggs got one hand on it, tried to pull it in, but he couldn't. And from that point, Allen really started to press, I think. And when there were some things that were open underneath, when Beasley started to win and he would get open for about a 6 or 7 yard hitch and sit down there, Allen wanted to press it a little more downfield and go for like the 15-yard throw and try to fit it into some tighter windows to try and get the Bills back and gain some yardage and get some chunk plays. And he started to press a little bit, and that fit into what the Chiefs wanted to do, and they started to get into his head, and the offensive rhythm just wasn't there. The tone that had been set by Kansas City was able to be maintained throughout that whole game, and I think the Kansas City defense dictated what the Bills were going to do more than the Bills dictated that themselves, and that's something that we hadn't seen for a majority of the year. Dable and the Bills offense have been able to, one, either game plan well, or as the season progressed, they've been able to adjust week to week, half to half, quarter to quarter, drive to drive, and be like, okay, they're doing this. We need to counter with this. The Miami game was a great example. Mm-hmm. We saw the Bills come out and get shut down for the first several drives, and then they scored by working the short and driving downfield with it. The next drive, they thought, okay, you know what? Miami's going to go for the short. Let's hit them with a little more intermediate. They carved them up with that. Then the drive after that, they came in and they got a bunch of deep throws, 4 plays, 75 yards, touchdown. We saw that all year from the Bills offense. We didn't in this game, and I think a lot of it was due to the scheme and the execution from Kansas City.
Yeah, it was tough to watch. It really was. I mean, you said it perfectly at the top that every little thing was like pulling teeth. You know, every throw, even if it was a 5-yard throw, had to be perfect, had to be in the proper spot. Like there was very small margin for error in that game. Against the Chiefs on when we're talking about the Bills offense versus the Chiefs defense. And let's flip the script and look at the defense, because a lot of people are talking about the defense and how the Chiefs, carved up the Bills on that side of the ball. And one of the comments was talking about how disappointing it was, especially because the Bills played them at the beginning of the year. How much different, if any, was their approach from week 6 to this game, in your opinion?
I don't know if necessarily the approach was holistically different as so much as it was the execution. Just the lack of the biggest thing for me, we came in that week 6 game and lost 26-17. Clyde Edwards-Helaire had an amazing game with the run, but the Bills were able to limit Tyreek Hill. He had 3 catches for about 20 yards. Kelsey did his thing because we've struggled with the tight end all year. But coming into this game, you thought, okay, they got to match up with Kelsey. They proved they could handle Tyreek Hill a little bit. Let's see what we can do and see what we can limit. And it was the opposite of that. Just off of some raw numbers, the success that Kelsey and Hill had, Travis Kelsey had 13 catches on 15 targets, 2 touchdowns, and 118 yards. Tyreek Hill had 9 catches on 11 targets for 172 yards. That includes the 71-yard touchdown catch. Also, for reference, Patrick Mahomes, he had 29 completions. 22 of them were to Kelsey and Hill.
Yeah.
He threw for 325 yards. 290 of that was to Kelsey and Hill. The Bills they got beat in such a variety of ways. They were vulnerable underneath. The game plan that was talked about from week 6 was that too high look that the Bills were using and how they got beat in the run.
Yeah.
Exactly. And the Bills came into this game, ran a lot of zone, which may have kind of been better because when they did go man coverage, they got torched real bad. But they ran a lot of zone. They ran a lot of quarters. And those that you and I were talking about it earlier, the underneath guys, those 3 underneath, when the Chiefs were stretching the top of that defense and taking it off, Edmonds, Milano, and Taron Johnson were constantly put into situations where there was too much ground for them to cover. Mahomes found them every time. They didn't have the speed to stick with the guys, and it was just carve up, play after play. They did not have an answer for the underneath game that the Chiefs brought and how they were able to spread us out and take advantage of it in the short and intermediate.
Yeah, I mean, look at some of these numbers, the yak yardage. I mean, 111 of Hill's 172 yards are a yak. Obviously, that one big play, everyone comes to mind. But as you said early on in the game, I thought they did, play a lot of zone. But some of what they were doing and stuff to cover in the film room was forcing the Bills to go to man coverage because they were just dinking and dunking them underneath, and they weren't just catching it; they were catching it and running. And so the Bills had to do something. And also how they were attacking with those four strong formations, which we're going to break down, really forced the defense to change how they wanted to cover, but also because they were running a lot of those RPOs where it really stressed, as you said, those underneath defenders and created those conflict defenders, conflict linebackers, and okay, are you going to step up the run? Are you going to drop back and pass because we're running it off of you? That's going to really decide what we do here. So that really put the defense in a bind, put a lot of individual players in the bind, and a lot of that was scheme. Don't get me wrong, Kelsey and Hill, they balled out, but it was the plays that were designed to attack the Bills' coverage. The Chiefs knew exactly what they were going to see coverage-wise out of the Bills' defense, obviously coordinated by Leslie Frazier. So it really hurt them. A lot was, that yak yardage, that yardage after the catch from the Bills defense. So let's get to Travis Kelce, because Romo brought it up several times in the game, how they should be defending Travis Kelce. And it was one of my points coming in about, they should be physical with him at the line of scrimmage, not necessarily putting a defensive end on him to jam him, or going out of the way to put a guy on him. Whoever is on Travis Kelce or near him, then, disrupt his route. You do not want him on a free release in space, because as you can see, he can run the entire route tree and he can eat you up over the middle. He can eat you up, from in that hook to curl area like he did. And a lot of Mahomes' yardage came in the middle of the field, and usually the Bills defense defends that really well.
You hit it on the head. The free release after free release after free release, there was just no chip on him whatsoever. And it's even more frustrating, especially when you juxtapose it with what the Chiefs were doing on defense, which was constantly getting in every Bills receiver or tight end's face and jamming them and getting a hand on them and being physical. And you see the numbers there from Mahomes in the passing direction and what he was able to do in the middle. And a lot of that was Travis Kelce, like you said, because he eats in that intermediate. And he's such a great route runner. If you didn't see the way that he completely turned Denzel Ward inside out against the Browns for his one touchdown, was amazing. He's a great route runner. He's a big body. He knows how to use his size. And exactly to your point, if you let him come off free from that line of scrimmage, you're just asking to get beat in some sort of route, in some sort of coverage vulnerability, and Mahomes is going to find him. And when you add in the other aspects of that Chiefs offense, i.e. the speed element from Hardman and Hill and even Pringle, exactly, Michael, speed does kill, there's more vulnerability. And you have to do something to disrupt the timing, to disrupt the flow. And the Bills did not do that. And time again, Travis Kelce was able to just come off the line and run a route and get found right away. We didn't get physical with him. We didn't get hands on him. And you know what's funny is the times when we did, you saw things work out. Granted, there was a small sample size. There was a play early on where Saran Neal came up and jammed Kelce, got a hand on him. One of the plays we're going to break down later with the Taron Johnson stop on a pass to Kelce towards the end zone. He gets in his face, he jams him, and he rides him and knocks the ball down on the throw attempt. When we got physical with him, it did work a little bit, but it's not something we went to regularly, and he ate us alive because he was just able to get free release after free release.
Yeah, and one of the main ways the Bills were attacked from the Chiefs offense, we're going to get into the film now and talk about this 4-strong formation you heard me talk about. And all that means is the Chiefs flooded one side of the field with 4 eligibles. And so this is, it's not anything. I mean, everyone does it. Even the Bills did it in this game. They did it like 4 or 5 times. But the Chiefs just excelled in this. And I didn't get a chance to go back and look if this was something they, found out in the first matchup that was there for the taking. But as you guys can see, there's 4 eligibles down to the bottom of the screen and with the running back set to the trip side. So there's 4 guys that can go out. And that really, when you play zone, that's going to flood the zone coverage to the bottom of the screen. Because if you think about it, with the split field coverage, the 2 safeties back here, you have 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, normally, if it's a regular trips formation, you got 4 over 3, you're in good shape. But if you got a hat on a hat, if you have 4 on 4, and you have the speed and talent that the Chiefs do, it's a different ball game. And so the Chiefs ran this play several times, this formation several times. One of our interns, Nathan, charted all of these plays. And in all, just to give you an idea, in all, they had 13 completions out of 4 strong for 144 yards, and they even pitched in 33 rushing yards out of this formation. So Nathan charted that today, and it really blew my mind because I knew it was quite high, but I didn't expect it to be to that level. So we're going to kind of break down this formation and show you a bunch of these plays and why they became open. So generally, let's start with what the Bills like to run generally against a trip formation. Just, picture this guy is usually on this side, it's a 3-by-1 formation. Well, usually the Bills are going to run this trap coverage. And all that means is if these two inside receivers, the tight end and receiver here in the slot, run out patterns, all the defenders are going to do, all Edmonds, Taron Johnson are going to do, they're going to let those routes go out. So you'd see Levi Walls pick up that shallow out-breaking route. You'd see Taron Johnson pick up the second in-breaking route. And then you see Edmonds kind of drop and watch the running back out of the backfield. And if that out-breaking route right here is passed on to Levi Wallace, then you're going to see the deep route cut or taken over by the deep safety. So this is basically how the Bills like to match 3-by-1 formations. But again, when you run these 4 strong formations, that really puts some numbers in the favor of the Chiefs offense. And so on this play, what you're going to see, and this is that play that you saw from a really good angle from the broadcast where Mahomes, uses his eyes to move Tremaine Edmonds. And on this play, generally, when this play's coming in and this guy's going out, what's going to happen is you're going to hear Taron Johnson say in, and let Tremaine Edmonds know, hey, you got to take the guy that's coming over the middle. I'll take the out route by Kelsey. Well, that doesn't quite happen. You see Edmonds reading the eyes of Mahomes. And if you're watching the eyes of Mahomes, or even his body language for that matter, you're at a disadvantage because he can move you like no other quarterback has ever done.
His eyes are a lie. His body is a lie. It's so hard to defend him. He made so many throws this game that you just had such a massive appreciation for what he was doing. And this pass play here on the 4 strong is such a good example of it. You see Levi drop and he's reading number 1, but keeping his eyes on number 2, right, maintaining his responsibility in that trap coverage. And it's almost like Mahomes knows exactly what that is. And yes, he puts his eyes and his body, like everything, if you stop it right there, everything is pointing towards him throwing to this bottom side of the field, whether it's throwing it to the number 1 receiver, throwing it to Kelsey down in the flat, everything's pointing to that, which is why, if you look right there, look at Edmonds, look at Taron Johnson. They've both planted and they're committing to that side of the field because they're making their read. And nope, Mahomes fooled him, and he just gets a little bit of room and connects right over the middle. And that again was another example, as we're going to go through a lot of examples of it, of the chess match that the Chiefs were consistently playing, whether it was their call or just the execution on the field or both combined. Look at that. Like, look at Mahomes. Like, everything in his body is like, hey, I'm opening up. I'm going to throw this to the left. Nope. I'm going to twist the hips a little bit and I'm going to the middle of the field. And this dude is wide open. Their ability to scheme and execute and manipulate the coverages for the Bills was ridiculous in this game.
Yeah, and here's another one, and I want you to watch. Again, so initially there's 3 guys to the bottom, right? And here you see the movement by, I believe this is Hill up top, but there's 3 eligibles to the bottom. Well, they kind of, show some eye candy and have Hill motion to the bottom. Now it's these 3 to the bottom. So now the running back, again, kind of goes in the middle. So now the Bills have to match these 3 receivers. So they're challenging your eye discipline. They're challenging you post-snap and how you're going to match this with your coverage. So you see Edmonds get his eyes on the mesh right there, make sure that it's, run the pass there. And they do a good job. Edmonds and Johnson do a good job of squeezing that number 2. Now they have to work to number 3. Where's number 3 going to the bottom? And of course that's Hill. So it moves Edmonds just a little bit. But then this play is just ridiculous. Let me just say this, because you see Mahomes, if you guys remember this pump fake, you heard Romo talk about it from the end zone angle, that this pump fake, like there's nothing Edmonds can do. You saw a pump fake. This pump fake wasn't for Tremaine Edmonds. It wasn't for this guy right here. It was for Jordan Poyer deep, because normally when you have this crossing route by Kelsey right here to the top of the screen, what Poyer is taught to do is slice that so that you're not out leveraged by that over route by Kelsey. Well, The pump fake holds Poyer right there because this guy's coming across the screen. So that pump fake held Poyer, and obviously it allowed Kelce to find that void in the coverage. Again, quarters coverage. You got 4 guys deep. Now you have Kelce finding that soft spot underneath between the 3 defenders. Like, this is perfect. This is what the Chiefs want. You know, you talked about stressing those second level defenders, those linebackers, which are arguably the strength when it comes to athleticism on this team. And it really makes them null and void because it puts them in space and has 3 guys, including Taron Johnson, have to cover the entire second level. And that's just too easy for Travis Kelce and Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah, they took advantage of that all game. And this play, like you said, this is just so ridiculous. Like, Mahomes right here pump faking to Hardman so that he can hold Poyer just long enough to not allow him to come and execute that slice and crack down on Kelce. And you know what's even the shame about this too is even with that, this coverage isn't horrible.
No.
Edmonds' positioning isn't terrible. Taron Johnson's positioning isn't the worst, but it's a really good throw in the window. Kelce makes a really good catch, and it's all set up by the eyes and the misdirection and the manipulation.
Crazy, man.
Yo, it's so ridiculous to see that type of play. And Erik, you did a really good breakdown. I forget what game it was of Poyer executing the slice earlier in the year, and he comes down and he makes the pass breakup. And this is something that the Bills do with with a decent amount of regularity. Poyer will come down, he'll slice, he'll pass off Hardman in the middle, going across to Tre'Davious White, who's dropping deep on the other side of the field. You can't see him right now. And then Poyer's going to come down and slice. There you go. You'll see Tre'Davious White up on the top.
He'll replace him over the top.
Exactly. So Trey's going to play there. Poyer would pass Hardman off and then come down and narrow that window to Kelce, or potentially be able to break it up on some contact as the ball arrives. And it's like Mahomes was in the huddle and he knew it. And so he pumps to hold Poyer on Hardman. And you just see it. Watch. Here it comes. Here you see Poyer right there. He hesitates and he turns the hips just a little bit to go with Hardman. And as soon as he does that, boom, it's over. Got him. Kelce, completion. And it's that intermediate area of the field, again, where Kelce thrives, where he lives, and where Mahomes is just so deadly. Oh, that pump fake. And then Mahomes doesn't even necessarily reset his feet and get on a good platform. He's almost like still hopping, and he just, and then comes back up and just cannons it into, honestly, some not great coverage, but decent enough. But combined with the misdirection and the play call, just really well executed.
It's completely stressing the defensive coverage, stressing the post-snap processing and rules. As you said, the Poyer was supposed to slice there. White's supposed to replace over the top against that post. The little route to the bottom of the screen by Hill is obviously the eye candy to get Taron Johnson to widen so that passing lane opens up. Like, this is a master's class on how to really attack a coverage. And that, kudos to the scouts and coaching of the Chiefs to really, point that out and really know that that's the coverage they're going to see. So again, 4 strong. So you saw the running back out wide. He comes in, and you're going to see, obviously, it's a low red zone call here. And this is just a play to Kelce in the slot. And it was a good play from Taron Johnson in the slot. You see Kelce try to get into the body and push off, kind of like he did to Trey White later in the game. And Taron Johnson on the sprint out to the left does a good job of closing and getting his hand in there with his left hand. And this is something the Chiefs did. We'll have a couple more plays where they moved the pocket. It's something they did a lot of in this game, even though Mahomes was kind of banged up. And I think it kind of caught the Bills off guard because you can see this 4-strong formation. You got the 3 here and then the back. This back is able to seal that edge to give Mahomes a nice, easy lane and throw to Kelce. But again, Taron Johnson breaks this play up.
It's a really great play from Taron Johnson, and it's a shame that it'll be lost in the larger scheme of things, which was that the Bills defense didn't have a good game. But I spoke about this play earlier and talking about what happened when the Bills would get physical with Travis Kelce. Taron Johnson does a really good job. He stands his ground. He gets his arms extended. He doesn't get pushed off, and he plants, comes forward. He stays close, and he closes really, really well. Taron Johnson had a couple plays in this game where his closing speed that led him to some pass breakups was really well done. And also what you see on this play is that those floods that the Chiefs are running, trying to flood that defensive zone, it really stresses you from high to low in terms of where you're able to cover and what you're able to do and where you're vulnerable. But when you get down in the red zone, obviously that space is smaller and it's shrunk because you're in the red zone and the end zone sideline is going to keep you boxed in there. And Taron Johnson knows that. He uses the sideline as an extra defender, plays his coverage well, gets physical, and it's something that I see this play and it makes me say, I wonder what would have happened if we maintained some kind of physicality like that throughout the rest of the game in different formations to try and gain some kind of an edge.
Yeah, no doubt about it, man. And you're going to see the Chiefs align in a 2x2 set, a normal 2x2 set in the low red zone. And then they motion Kelsey to the top of the screen. Now they're in 4 strong. And the Bills have Taron Johnson blitzing off the edge. You see 3 defenders right here. It looked like man coverage with Poyer obviously following Kelsey to the top, and then watch Kelsey block to the top of the screen. So the throw goes to Hardman right there. You see the block by Kelsey, and now you have a hat on a hat right there, and that speed, although it's only 4 or 5 yards, he's going to get in there just based on where Poyer was aligned against this 4 strong and in off coverage. Because again, you're threatened by that. You don't want to just give up that easy play, easy slant route. So they're playing off a little bit and trying to force everything outside. Well, that just allowed them to get leverage on the outside, and then Hardman's up to shoot for a touchdown.
Yeah, good play design here from Kansas City, just taking advantage of the numbers and the alignment of the defense. And they're just betting here that, okay, we can block we can block Hyde and Levi, get enough of a piece of him, and if by the time we get into Hardman's hands, he can get upfield and get in the end zone before Poyer can close this down and make a play. And Poyer's angle, that's even just with it there. Poyer's angle isn't the worst, but it's just slightly off and not direct enough. And when you have the speed that Hardman has and how he can just get upfield right away and just go from 0 to 60 in the blink of an eye, it's just not enough. He comes a little upfield too much. And you see right here, he has to step. Poyer comes through and he has to step and kind of round out a little bit and come back upfield, and he can only get an arm on the ball because his angle is off just a little bit. And the reason his angle is off is because that speed of Hardman is so great that it negates the come up that Poyer was doing, and he just gets upfield, and all Poyer can do is get an arm on the ball.
Great design there in the low red zone, and it doesn't take long when the Chiefs design beautiful play calls like that. It doesn't take long for a guy like Hardman to get upfield. So this is again a 4 strong formation. You're going to see the running back kind of shift or motion to the bottom of the screen, and you see the defender Tremaine Edmonds slide down, and this is just like it's what we call a spacing concept. So what these 4 strong formations do is they put a lot of stress, as we said, on those underneath defenders, specifically the Mike linebacker and Taron Johnson. And you're going to see those guys get really stressed here because this is Hill running that corner route. This route right here, that's Hill. So, of course, you got to respect that, right? You got to stay over the top of that. You see the hand of Edmonds kind of try to disrupt him, but they're running 2 little curl routes right into that zone, into those the voids in those zones. And so as Edmonds stays over the top of Hill, it opens up a short pass underneath to Pringle. And again, it's only a few yards, but that is like they kept doing that and doing that and doing that. And it's like, okay, when are the Bills going to adjust? I mean, this is a simple concept. It's a common concept, but it's from that 4 strong formation that, 4 eligibles to the bottom of the screen. And it really stressed the too high quarters type coverage that the Bills wanted to play against the Chiefs last Sunday.
Exactly. Stressing the alignment again, stressing the coverage. And what's really, again, you nailed it. It's so simple, but what's really great about this play is at worst, you're going to get like a 4 or 5 yard gain, or maybe look at Pringle gets some separation there, and there's just enough separation that he can get this ball, he can tuck it and get upfield for another 2 yards. Or if that play is completed to Tyreek Hill or Hardman or Kelsey, maybe they make a man miss and they get another 3 or 4 yards. Or if they're Tyreek Hill, they break it off for 70. It's just another way that this Chiefs offense stressed the Bills. And I think this is a really good play to highlight because we talk about the Chiefs and we talk about their speed and what they're able to do in the vertical game, but their precision game and their West Coast attack when they have it. Again, Andy Reid is a West Coast guy and he comes from that tree and he's adapted a lot to fit with the game of Mahomes, and Mahomes fits so well with what Andy Reid is doing. But this is just classic, stressing the field horizontally, making the defense make a decision in that horizontal route. Okay, do you want to stop the 7-yard route, the 7-yard out, or do you want to stop the 4-yard out? Okay, because you got to pick one, and my quarterback is good enough to find whichever one you didn't pick, and that's what Mahomes did. And again, it's just another example to use a route to clear out Edmonds and create a little bit of space, and Mahomes making that read in the blink of an eye and firing it out. Just a really good concept. And also you highlighted it too, like to move Tyreek Hill into that spot to make the defense have to honor it is just another layer that makes this simplistic play design really quality and high effectiveness because of stresses.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure the entire week the Bills focused on stopping the run, but stopping the run with their front 7 or front 6. As you saw, they played too high coverages all day. And so while, the run was there, the Chiefs said, you know what, we're going to take it to a different level. We're going to go a different route. We're going to, instead of just handing it off to the running backs, especially when Edwards-Helaire is obviously banged up a little bit, we're going to throw it underneath as an extension of the run game, as we talked about with Cole Beasley in the Bills offense, and get it in the hands of our speedsters and hope that they can not only get that effective, efficient, 5 to 7 yard game, but maybe they're able to break one after the catch here or force the defense to change their coverage. And eventually that's what they do. So, and we'll get to that. So now we're in the second quarter, guys, and it's a 1st and 6 situation. So we're in the red zone here. And let me get back to the top here. You're going to see the Chiefs, again, use that eye candy with Tyreek Hill, and they're in 4 strong right there. But all they're doing is running a little counter tray. So you see the left guard, left tackle pull. They get the running back up inside, and, of course, they get some vertical movement and a touchdown from the Chiefs here. Watch it from the end zone angle. So here, again, you saw Hill going to the right side of the screen right there. So obviously all eyes are on that. And then here comes the left guard, left tackle up inside. And then just look at the movement on this combination block on Jefferson. Obviously, you see Johnson come down, Milano come down, but the running back gets ahead of steam, and he's going to be tough to stop when you have a pretty light box against this type of 4-strong look.
Yeah, another well-executed play from Kansas City. Harrison Phillips gets turned almost immediately to open up that lane to the side, and then you mentioned it, great double-team block. Quentin Jefferson just gets washed completely from this play. And then look at, Milano tries to fill, and he submarines the puller, but they basically just cancel each other out, which is a win for Kansas City because that's one more hat that can't make a play for the Bills defense. And by the time Poyer is able to come downhill and make a tackle, Williams already has enough momentum, and he just gets low and drives to the end zone. And Addison tries to make a play on this, which was honestly some good hustle there from Addison, who takes a super wide angle initially because of that threat from Tyreek Hill. And just look at that right there, like that. The scheme is just set up so well for the taking. Harrison Phillips is basically already out of the play. Quentin Jefferson is about to be completely taken out of the play, and Milano's going to scrape over to that play side, but he's going to get taken out. Darryl Johnson gets met in the hole, and just really well executed, and it's all set up by part of that motion, that pre-snap motion, to make you, again, think a little bit or hesitate just a little bit, to give you that eye candy and to give you that false direction and that manipulation, and just really well executed, and not well executed enough on defense for the Bills.
Yeah, no. Hey, guys, thanks for tuning in. We're going to obviously break down a few more plays here. I'm going to show you, obviously, this formation really crushed the Bills on Sunday, and we're going to show you coming up here in a few plays how the Bills adjusted to this and what these simple zone coverage, these 2 high quarters coverages really did against the Chiefs. Obviously, they had trouble stopping it, so they had to change how they approach it. So again, another 2 high look versus this 4-strong formation. And here's that mesh, that wide zone look. Again, an RPO type look. So that holds Edmonds and Johnson down here to the bottom of the screen. And it's just 2 curl routes to the bottom. But because of the coverage that is called, what that does, it stresses Taron Johnson, because the corner, Josh Norman, is assigned to go deep. The deep safety, deep half safety is deep. You have this guy executing a push. He's got to usually watch in quarters coverage. He usually watches the trips guy, which is Kelsey here, but he's not going out right away. He usually has to keep an eye on him in a push call. But you see now the little curl routes at the bottom of the screen, Johnson has to work past this number 2 receiver because he is responsible for this receiver to the bottom of the screen. And with the rollout by Mahomes, it puts him closer to his target, and then the throw is dropped. But you see the stress that it puts on the Mike and the nickel corner here off of, a little play action RPO type look. You got a rollout. He's got a really nice, okay, say both of these guys are covered down the field. He has the option to run it. And I know he's banged up, but he's still going to, escape. So again, the play call is just beautiful, and the coverage normally works really well versus 3-by-1. It really stressed the coverage because the Chiefs' formations and some of the concepts and route combinations that Eric Bieniemy and Andy Reid threw at the Bills.
Again, just we keep saying it and feel like a broken record. Just well schemed, well executed, well designed. What's nuts about this? I know Kelce could potentially release a little late on here, but this is basically a 2-man route here to the bottom of the screen, and you've got minimum of 3 defenders in the area. But because of the call and the timing and the scheme of it, it creates such a stressful situation, which should be a pretty easy stop for the Bills defense. But because of what had happened to the game up until this point, combined with the timing of this call and this execution, it makes a simpler play for Taron Johnson all that much more stressful because he has to stretch and get out there so quick. And it is a good job by Taron Johnson. Granted, the receiver drops it, but good close, good effort by Taron. And you see Edmonds there. He has to push. Johnson has to get back outside. And you've almost got what's so frustrating, you've got Norman down there who's basically a defender just lost in the sauce and just in the middle of not doing anything. And it's not necessarily his fault. It's just the design of the play by the Chiefs. Even when the Bills had numbers to a side of the field like they do in this case, they were still at a disadvantage. And we see a comment there from Trey, you have to respect their speed. You do have to respect their speed. And the Chiefs knew that, and they knew that we knew that, and took advantage of it with their game plan and their script and what they did. And again, you see a simple 2-man route, not overly complicated, not a hard read for Mahomes, and he rolls out. And again, worst case scenario, like you said, if the Bills cover this perfect, he probably can run or maybe even dump it off to Kelce and they can still get 3 or 4 yards. But instead he makes a little bit of a late throw and it gets dropped and Taron breaks on it. But again, it's a simple thing, but it was complicated for the Bills to try and stop it.
Yeah, and I know a lot of people are asking, what's Norman doing? You see him pointing, and he's calling it out, I'm sure, to Johnson. Hey, you got that short flat route right there, that comeback or stop route to the bottom. Norman has to drop deep and if you look at the detail of these routes, this is quite short. This is past linebacker level, and usually what Norman has to look out for, him and the safety, is a China call. Usually what that is a smash concept, and so he's got to stay deep in his deep quarters here. Which is, what Michael said in the chat room, Norman has a deep zone. So just that little detail of running that route a little deeper to not only pick off Taron Johnson, but to kind of hold Norman deep so that he has to respect that China call if it were to be a corner route right there, or even just a vertical route. Obviously, then Norman and the deep half safety would have him. So the details in this play, and again, I think it comes down to the Chiefs absolutely knowing what the Bills were going to do. And so another play, 2nd and 10 situation. And a lot of these 4-strong formations, as you see the Chiefs motion to it here with Kelce, they came in the base offense. They came at 1st and 10, 2nd and 10. It was very rare that they ran it in other situations, 2nd and 3, 2nd and 5. It was very rare. Most of the time, it was in these base concept calls. So Bills on this play show a simulated pressure, and you're going to see Johnson, again, kind of push wide to the bottom of the screen. So watch it again. You see him right there. He does a good job of rerouting that number 2 right there. That's what they're taught to do, kind of make him take some speed off that vertical route and then get to the area. You see him having to push wide. You see Tremaine Edmonds, he's supposed to push wide there as well. I'm not sure on this play if with Milano blitzing right here or rushing, if Hughes is supposed to drop out underneath. It's hard to tell on this play, but there's a chance that he is supposed to be underneath. But either way, you see the stick route by Travis Kelce in between the 2 defenders. Again, Taron Johnson just saw that stop route to the bottom, so he has to respect that. He can't just jump the throw to Kelce. You get, a little half roll. The edge is sealed, and an easy throw in the void in between Edmonds and Taron Johnson.
Another good example of flooding the zone with routes and making the Bills defense have to make a decision. And stop it right there. Kelce is just, right there. Kelsey is literally just perfectly in between Taron Johnson and Tremaine Edmonds. And then Mahomes, if he wanted, also has an option, again, a little at the 35 there, going a little deep, or towards the bottom at the 30 if he wants that. Like, you have to pick your poison with these routes, and KC just executed it time and time again and stressed the Buffalo defense. Like, okay, you're going to go for the short route, I'm going to hit the intermediate. Okay, you're going to go for the intermediate, I'm just going to dump it off short. Okay, you're going to go for both of those, I got a guy deep. The flood concept it's something that isn't tremendously unique. It's not something that's tremendously nuanced, but when run well, just like anything, you can run the simplest thing, but if you run it to perfection, it's hard for anybody to stop it. And they kept running this flood at us. Again, you said it, 13 completions out of that 4-strong formation. And again, for reference, Mahomes only had 29 completions on the whole night. So he had 13 out of that 4-strong type of look. And they just kept stressing the Bills defense with it. And Kelsey's great at finding the soft spot in the zone and just hitching up and sitting down, and Mahomes can read it, and boom, it's a quick little gain. And these were the type of completions and the plays that I thought hurt the Bills even more, because they were just these long sustained drives from Kansas City. And it was just like death by 1,000 cuts, constantly getting poked and stabbed and constantly getting poked and stabbed. And sometimes those drives can be more demoralizing than just giving up one big play for a home run touchdown.
Yeah. And so, now we get to the point in the game where the Bills, they're forced to adjust, and you're going to see that. And some of those plays were within the same drive, as Poyer talked about with me, a couple weeks ago, that it's very difficult to make adjustments when you have these concepts assaulting the coverage and defense of the Bills within the same drive. So you see the adjustment here. And of course, if you cannot stop the flooding of the zone like you saw the Chiefs doing, well, one way to stop that and one way to combat RPOs, which you saw a couple of those plays, is to go to man coverage. So you see the running back to the bottom of the screen. Here comes Milano over him. Okay, now it's identified as man coverage. You got 4 strong to the top of the screen. And now look at the matchups. This is man-to-man coverage. You have Hardman versus Norman. You have Tyreek Hill versus Taron Johnson. Edmonds or the safety versus Hilaire and Kelsey. So one thing we talked about prior to going live, Anthony, is, when we talk about individual players on the Bills defense, their defense that is kind of the sum of the entire defense, right? And the athleticism on the defense is really at the linebacker position when you talk about Edmonds and Milano. If you're looking at it from a positional standpoint, their athleticism is probably above average when it comes to the linebacker position. Every other position, really, the cornerbacks, the safeties, the nickel corners are, okay, they're good athletes, but they're not, above athletes for their positions. And so when you have guys like Hardman, who runs a 4.33, you have Tyreek Hill, who runs a 4.29, Evan Pringle pitches in a 4.46, and then, of course, Kelsey with a 4.61, like, going to man coverage isn't really the best matchup here, and you see them take advantage of it. So now to the top of the screen, you have Poyer from depth. They're trying to disguise it, obviously, on Travis Kelsey, and all Kelsey's doing is running a little flat route, and the 2 receivers out wide are just coming in on slant routes, and you see Poyer have to work through Hardman at the top, and he has to come from depth to try to, pick off Kelsey one-on-one, and really no help there. He gets picked off, and now Norman comes off, and Kelsey damn near scores here. So, I mean, this is an adjustment by Frazier, but you see the Chiefs already ahead of the Bills defense.
Yeah, you hit it on the head with a switch to man-to-man. I saw a lot of that in the comments on Twitter after the game, like, we were in too much zone and why didn't we go more man-to-man? And it's exactly because of what you and I were talking about earlier. This Bills defense, when they're on and they win, it's because of execution, it's because of scheme fit, and it's because of coaching and scheme ability. This is a technically sound defense, but they are not full of burners. There is no, for as great as Tre'Davious White is, and he's one of the best corners in the league, yeah, he's not Patrick Peterson. He's not this big, strong, muscly corner who runs a 4.3 40. Our defense, especially in that secondary, they're quicker than they are fast, and they're not physically athletic freaks or guys who are going to test off the charts. The linebackers are more of that with Edmonds and Milano, and they were neutralized. So you've got to play like this where you go man-to-man. And again, you mentioned it. It's just a simple route. Like, Kelsey just runs a little flat, takes off right away, and he's matched up with Poyer. One, that's a lot of space to have to cover for anybody, let alone Poyer, who, again, really good safety, but he's not a burner. So he's got to close that lane down as soon as he can, which is tough. And then just a little cherry on top, the fact that he has to get through Hardman, who's running that slant, and then that takes him out of position. He goes down and Norman has to make the play. Again, simple concept, simple play design, but really well executed and well timed because of the coverage adjustment that the Bills were trying to make. And in this example, it ends up biting them in the foot a little bit because the matchup that Kansas City created allows the ball to get down to like the half-yard line.
Yeah, it's again now you're playing right into the hands of the Chiefs. I believe the Chiefs offense, Patrick Mahomes dropped back like 657 times, I think, in the regular season. And they only saw man coverage 197 times. So I think it was like 29% of the time. You just can't play man coverage against the talent that they have at wide receiver, at tight end, and even the running back position. I think when you talk about athleticism, probably the least athletic guys are at the running back position. And so when you go to man coverage like this and you get those RPO type plays like you see here, and you're playing man coverage, and if people don't know, one of the main ways to slow down or stymie RPOs is to go man coverage, because when you have an RPO, you usually are seeing zone coverage and you're attacking a guy that is responsible for, say, the hook to curl. So like, for example, if this was zone coverage, the conflict defender is Tremaine Edmunds. If he falls into his run fit like he does here, just comes up 2 steps, you don't need much, his zone would be vacated behind him. Well, again, the Bills are in man coverage here. So now you have Taron Johnson versus Hill in the slot. You have the conflict defender and being Tremaine Edmunds coming downhill versus the wide zone look. Again, it's a run type look. He comes down a couple steps, and then you have Hill smoking Taron Johnson off the line of scrimmage. You heard McDermott talk about speed, and that's what stood out in physicality in this game. And no matter what, even if Edmunds does stand back here and defend the pass, what's going to end up happening is Hill's just going to get by him, and he's still going to get up the sideline or up the numbers. It doesn't matter because Mahomes has the time to throw this, and Hill's going to get open. And on this play, it's just you're in man coverage. You can still defeat man coverage. When you have a guy like Tyreek Hill, he takes it, 70, 71 yards on a simple RPO concept.
This play makes me want to throw up. I hated watching it and studying for this. I hate seeing it now. And the Bills come in this man coverage, cover one, pun, plug, and Edmunds just takes a couple steps up and it's over. He completes it to Hill, and just you see the speed there. He can change everything in the blink of an eye. And the end of the play is the whole play is, as a result, is what we're going to talk about. And also, I see you highlighted Poyer there. Like, this was just such a great chase down effort, and he almost gets a piece of him. I didn't think Poyer had this kind of long distance speed in him.
Right?
And so for him to pull that off, and just the effort of it was a beautiful thing to see. But this play is lost from the line of scrimmage. Taron Johnson gets up in Hill's face, and Hill just makes one false move outside, and look at the separation. As soon as Mahomes throws it, clear passing lane, has the window, pause it right there. Just not the most, but just when you're that fast as Tyreek Hill, all he has to do is get the ball. And this isn't even like a perfect throw. If anything, Mahomes kind of throws it a little bit behind Tyreek Hill, and he just adjusts, reestablishes his gait, and takes off. And we saw it time after time, just taking advantage of the Bills defense and creating holes in the underneath coverage, whether it was zone for a lot of them. And in this instance, the man coverage, taking advantage of it. And the one thing that we haven't really hit on too much, and we're seeing it a lot in the chat here, is just the pressure aspect from the Bills defense. Like, Mahomes is just perfectly clean. Look at like Zimmer, Milano, and even Epenesa's got a little bend to him. They're all
defending the run. Like, you got to think about this. Again, this is an RPO type look. I think Mahomes knows that based on the coverage that he's going to have separation with Hill versus Johnson, but these guys have to defend run. If this is handed off, they got to be they got to maintain their gap integrity. Mm-hmm. So you can see they're actually in their gaps, their helmets are in their gaps. And again, Tremaine Edmunds would have this gap up the middle if it were a run, if he were to hand it off. Of course, Mahomes doesn't. And that's why, I know one of the questions in there was like, why does he have so much time? Well, It's the play design. It's the play design. You see Josh and Cole Beasley complete this, and we talked about it. Like that first play, that 17-yard play, the Cole Beasley was an RPO, almost the same exact play as this right here, just out of a different formation. And that's why he has so much time. Guys have to read and process, run the pass first. Okay, where's my gap? Let me get upfield, get my helmet and my proper hand placement. And then guess what? It's too late. Ball's upfield to Tyreek Hill, and he's 71 yards down the field. Like, it's so frustrating because you saw the Bills make an adjustment to this 4-strong look, but that adjustment plays right into the hands of what the Chiefs want you to do. They want you to, not just go to man coverage, but that's when they want to get their explosive plays, when they have man coverage. The Bills were getting eaten up in the zone coverage and letting them complete those passes underneath. But when they switched their plan and they went away from that 2-high zone look, they went to the single high man coverage. You saw it just wasn't the answer. And here it is again. So man-to-man coverage later in the game, Johnson versus Hill again. And, you just saw that slant play with the 4-strong to the, on the last play. Well, what's Hill gonna do here, and what Johnson gonna do? What leverage is he gonna take? He's gonna take inside leverage. Hey, I'm not getting beat inside again. I'm gonna use that boundary, and that plays right to Hill because you see the man turn by Norman to the top of the screen, and now you have Hill versus Johnson. You have no one helping because you have this single high safety deep, and then you have a safety down in the box covering the number 3. The number 4 is covered by the peeling defensive end right here. And so one-on-one coverage, no help for Johnson, no leverage. He's got the free release outside with his speed, and it's just an easy out route completed by Mahomes to Tyreek Hill. It's just so frustrating. It's frustrating to watch, man.
Yeah, especially when it just continues to happen over and over again, and you're able to diagnose it right away. Like you said, man coverage, single high, and honestly, right there, Johnson, he's going to get beat, and you can tell he's going to get beat, but he's not like completely lost. He doesn't get completely destroyed, but that explosiveness from Hill to just be able to get out of the break so fast, and then with another, they're close when he gets to the top of the route and then turns it outward, but those next 2 steps from Hill just separate from Taron Johnson, and it creates a wide lane for Mahomes. There's no one in his face, and is able to just put it right on him. And unfortunately, again, it's just something we saw over and over again. And this time, the Bills' defensive line, they know it's a pass, and they come through, and there's just a beautiful pocket for Mahomes to throw from, and he can just drop back and sit and take his time. And it's just frustrating when you add it all up and just see the consistent level of execution that the Chiefs had. And I think what we're also trying to get at with this film room tonight is because we've shown a lot of similar things and had a lot of similar takes. And the reason we've done that is really to show that the Chiefs had a good game plan, and then they had answers for our answers. They had adjustments for our adjustments. No matter what we did, they almost had the answers to the test. And that's from a combination of really great coaching and then really great execution on the field. And we saw it time and time again in a variety of fashions. And it is so frustrating to watch.
Yeah, and this is a play where they don't score. They try getting Tyreek Hill on the back line right here, but I want to take it from the top. So you saw the running back motion in from the top of the screen, and here comes the alert call from Mahomes. So obviously they move the running back to the bottom. So now you got your 4-strong versus the bunch formation. Now, generally in the low red zone or inside the 10 and near the 5-yard line, you expect to see man coverage. Well, that coverage, that little motion from the running back uncovered what looks to be zone coverage. And so you saw the alert call. So they go to a man beater type concept, and just watch Hill get to the back line, how quickly he gets to the back line. Mahomes escapes the pocket right here, starts rolling to his right because the defensive end to the top of the screen rushes a little too far. You see him get to the right side numbers right there, and here comes Hill screaming towards the back pylon, and the play goes incomplete. But this just shows you how prepared they are, how complex their scheme is, and how they have answers for, like you said, if you're going to punch, they have a counter punch and then some. And getting Hill to the back line, you see him try to sneak behind Poyer right there, and damn near should have scored. And you'll see it from the end zone angle. Mahomes just misses this throw. This should have been another touchdown. And it's a play that stressed the zone coverage out of a 4-strong formation. Look at this, up and over White, and it's just a little too high. And White maybe even had an impact on this throw, getting his hands up there. He has to come forward. He has to be that contained. He has to stop Mahomes from scrambling to the front of the goal line there, and the throw is a little high, but you can see, I mean, Mahomes and Hill, they were on the same page. They had the proper call, and then Hill just separates at the back line.
Yeah, I think you're spot on with Trey. I think the reason Mahomes airmails this a little bit is because of how Trey closes down, and Mahomes just can't get the angle right in order to get it up and over and drop it into Tyreek Hill, and it just sails on him a little bit. But again, like, good call, good coverage from the Bills defense, and Mahomes recognizes the upfield rush, obviously knows what the play is, so he's just like, okay, I'm going to step up, and I'm going to go to my right, and has a massive lane. And again, a majority of this play is going to the left, except for Hill coming across the middle and the other Chiefs receiver coming over to the right. And you hit it right on the head. I was trying to think of a better word than screaming, but Tyreek Hill literally comes screaming across the back line. And again, if you go back a little, Poyer hesitates again just a little bit. He turns and he eyeballs Hill there and then turns again. He slows his gait just a little bit right there. And because Tyreek Hill is Tyreek Hill, he's gone. It's just separation. Yeah. That's slight. And think about that. Like, we're watching this in slow motion, but in real-time speed, Poyer hesitates for a half a second tops, and that half a second is enough to let Tyreek Hill gain about 4 yards of separation.
Yeah,
this should have been a touchdown. Like, great play by Trey to come up and alter the angle a little bit, but this is basically a broken play that resulted from a good call by the Bills, and the Chiefs still basically executed it very well, except for the very end. Like, you have to be on point every play in every facet and capitalize and execute, and the Bills just didn't do that time and time again. We saw it, and again, like, drilling that point home, not to continue to beat a dead horse, but that's what's so frustrating about this game is how well the Chiefs executed and how well they played mind games with us. And like you said, our punches that we tried to counterpunch with, they were able to duck and land haymakers and jabs, and then jab, haymaker, and just rinse and repeat over and over. And that's why we lost.
Yeah, it was frustrating because I know there's a lot of Monday morning quarterbacking, including us breaking these plays down for this game. And it's disappointing, how they showed. They didn't show out, Sunday night. But it was one of those things like what you heard McDermott talk about speed and physicality in his last two pressers. And to me, you tweeted about it today and how I think that's going to be the two keywords for this draft, this offseason. Because as you saw, when the Bills wanted to go to man coverage for most of the year, they just weren't able to because of, again, I like the players they have. I love Taron Johnson. We love Taron Johnson. We like Levi Wallace. They're sturdy. They're consistent. They're good players for what the Bills want to do. But I think it's to the point now, in McDermott's regime and his defense with Leslie Frazier, they have to evolve a little more. They can't play, 70% zone like they did this year. That was up from last year, up like 4 or 5% from last year. So I think they need to change some of their scheme. I think they have to change some of their talent. I think they need to add some more speed, as McDermott said. And we're going to start breaking down the offseason and some of these prospects going into the draft. I think speed is going to be a key, and especially at those corner positions, because you saw when the Bills actually did adjust, which they did. A lot of people didn't recognize that during the broadcast. When they did adjust to those formations and those concepts, you still saw the Bills get burned. I mean, even some of those easy plays, like where they'd motion Tyreek Hill in a 2x2 set to the bottom of the screen against Trey White, and you're like, okay, we're in good shape. He runs a speed out and gets leverage on Trey White. Nothing against Trey White, but they just took advantage of this with their speed, and they knew they had that advantage no matter if you're in zone or man coverage. So I think that they're going to have to evolve on defense, Anthony. I think it's inevitable.
Yeah, I would completely agree. There's multiple ways that you can win in sports. And if we're just focusing on football right now, which we are, there's multiple ways you can win in the NFL. And two of those ways are with talent or with scheme ability. And the Bills defense and the team as a whole has been able to win and be successful with scheme. But there has been times like this Kansas City game where the talent and the physical aspect just so heavily outweighs that scheme ability. And when you don't have the more God-given traits like size and strength and speed, you really have to be on point with your execution and with your scheme ability when you come up against people that have those physical measurables. And I think that evolving, like you said, is something that's key. This defense has to get a little more speed to it. I think there has to be more of a consistent emphasis on pressure from the defensive line. Yep, with the front four. This is the defense, despite all the simulated pressures and the blitzing from time to time that they do. McDermott's defense is primarily relied upon a front four pass rush with a heavy amount of rotation. So you need a quality. It's not even just a front four. You need a quality like front seven or a front six at minimum. And we need to see some upgrades along that line. We need more of a edge rushing presence who can win one-on-one consistently. And then if you're looking through the rest of the defense, again, this is something that we're going to discuss throughout this offseason, both in terms of the draft and free agency, and next week in the film room when we look at some draft stuff. But this team on both offense and defense needs to get a little bit more athletic, especially with regards to speed. And it was a little less pronounced with the offense in this game, but it was heavily pronounced with the defense because, again, there's going to be some times where, you know what, in order to win, we got to switch to man. And if you have a guy who's running a 4.5 and he's matched up with a guy who's running a sub 4.3, as good as his technique is, if he's off by a hair, he's going to lose to that sub 4.3 dude. And we saw it on Sunday over and over and over.
Yeah, and, I'll give Frazier credit. He was without Milano for a good chunk of the year, and he tweaked his scheme to fit A.J. Klein. He put him, at more at a rushing role. He dropped those ends out a little more and some of those simulated creeper pressures. He did some good things in that regard, but just playing that much zone, which, again, it has to do with the talent. And I know someone said, yes, McDermott comes from Jim Johnson's scheme. Totally true. And that was a scheme that, put pressure and affected the quarterback. And they, with Sheldon Brown, Alito Shepard, they played a little more man coverage. They disguise it in the very same manner that McDermott does. But McDermott coming and getting tutored a little bit from Ron Rivera, he kind of incorporated a little more of those zone concepts. And then, again, Leslie Frazier's influence. I think they're more zone-based scheme. But to compete with the elite offenses, you got to be more diverse. You got to be more complex. On top of the scheme of disguising those coverages and having those simulated and creeper pressures, don't just make them zone-based. Being able to run some 5-man pressures and play man on the back end is something that you have to do. You have to add that to the arsenal. I think it's time to evolve. They've been in Buffalo for a few years now. I think not that they're being figured out. I just think that's just the NFL. That the more tape you're putting on and playing, you're gonna have guys kind of get onto some of your cues, some of your just alignments, and you saw the Chiefs knew that the Bills were gonna play their quarters coverage. They probably worked on it all week, and they had concepts to beat that. And then when that they changed the man, it was like, ooh, all right, let's roll. And that's when those explosive plays hit. So. That's going to be fun, seeing those pieces of the free agency and the draft and what they're looking for. There's going to be some different draft tendencies, I think, taken this year than prior years for being in this organization when we're talking about the defensive side. I think there's going to be some tendencies broken because of what they're going to have to try to do on the defensive side of the ball. So, guys, it's been a good hour and 20 minutes or so. We appreciate everyone tuning in. We always go a little long here in the film room, but we love talking ball with you. I love breaking down film with my boy Anthony. And as he said, draft season has started. Oof. And that is exciting for us. We unfortunately, normally we have a crew that goes down to the Senior Bowl. We get a Airbnb. We stay down there the whole week, but because of COVID this year, most of us backed out of that. But hopefully we return next year. So pay attention to Christian Page on Twitter, Russell Brown. They'll be dropping content when it comes to the draft. Zach Hicks. They have obviously Cover One NFL Draft podcast. Tune into that stuff. Subscribe, download wherever you get your podcasts. And, of course, stay tuned for in about a half an hour. The Hoof Live is going to be on the Cover One YouTube channel. So go ahead and grab another couple beers because I'm sure you've had a few during this film breakdown. And we appreciate you tuning in. But, Anthony, before I get you out of here, let everyone know where they can find you on social media.
Find me on Twitter at pro__ant. That's pro, 2 underscores ANT. Again, I am the host of Disguise Coverage on the Cover One Sports Network, which airs live every Thursday night at 9 p.m. And then you can catch me here on the film room with Erik, hopefully going over more happier things as we progress through the offseason.
Well, again, man, this has been fun. We are going to try to do these at least once a week. We're probably going to start rolling out draft prospects. Again, if you are looking for the offensive breakdown, the Josh Allen Film Room, that will be tomorrow at 7 p.m. Eastern with Nate Kaiir and I, and we have a bunch of clips, and it's rough, man. It's rough, but it's necessary to close out the season, and we appreciate, again, everyone tuning in. I'm Erik Turner. That's Anthony Prohaska of Disguise Coverage, and we will see you later.